Hello folks, the old Texan here, back in front of the camera finally. You can tell we're probably not in the big city here right now. We're standing on one of the little country roads that singers have been writing songs about for decades. This one gets a little more traffic than some of the other ones around here. It's a little bigger, a little wider, a little better maintained. But what makes this one unique is one of the features that you really can't even see from here. The only indication is a couple of little white posts stuck in the grass. But as you walk up on it, you notice that there's a little bridge. If you look real close, you can see that at one point there was some fairly intricate stonework around it. It's all covered over, but the tops and edges are also stone. At one time there were stone posts at each corner and stone guardrails, but over the decades they have been knocked down by tractors, road maintenance, drunk farmers. But what really makes this one interesting is something that you can't see, and the thousands of people that have gone by it probably don't even know that it's there. But for me to show you that, I've got to go down there. So I'll see you down there. And now that shows the stonework a little bit better. Getting a really nice echo here under the bridge. You see it's just about 3.5, 4 feet tall. Typical little bridge you'd find anywhere out in farm country. What makes this one unique is a little bitty piece of brass that's stuck on it. Piece of history that, if you look at the dates, goes back about 80 years. And this is one of just many of hundreds of these bridges all over the U.S., a lot of them here in Texas, that are going away, being knocked down, being replaced, and a part of our history. I moved down the road about a mile to another bridge that shows the workmanship a lot better. The stonework, the quality of the work that went into it. I'm not going to crawl down into this one because it's double fenced. Looks like probably to keep the pigs out. But you can see the bolsters, the far wall, that it's just absolutely fantastically beautiful work. And this one has the same plaque. I said I'm not going to crawl down there to it. It's just a little tough to get in there. I mentioned on the first one where I stopped that these used to have stone pillars. This one shows you the remains of where the stone pillar was built here on the end wall of the bridge. And you can see that it's been broken off over time. And laying down at the base of the wall is part of what used to be the pillar. It's been knocked off and knocked down into this, I guess you could call it a creek. It's water crossing anyway. I put up the video of the two bridges as a reminder of two things. One, that there's unnoticed history that every day we walk past and pay no attention to, that really needs to be remembered. And more importantly, I did it for the WPA to show that there's more than one way to solve a problem, or as some of my forebears would put it, there's more than one way to skin a cat. During the 1930s, the United States and a lot of the world was in a very, very serious economic problem. We refer to it as the Great Depression. There was effectively no economy in the country. There were no jobs. Nobody had any money. The government decided to bail out the economy, and much different than the way we're approaching it today, by sending people money to stay home and locking people out of the economy. The government took exactly the opposite tack, and in 1935 passed a program called the Work Projects Administration, or WPA, and along with it, its sister project, the Civilian Conservation Corps, or the CCC. They were sister projects, the WPA being aimed at people that were of a working age, that were the head of the household, and were on what was termed relief at the time. The CCC was aimed more at a younger group, effectively college kids that could go to a camp and work rather than go to school. The WPA was set up to provide all kinds of jobs. Here in Texas, the majority of the jobs ended up being construction, but in other states, there were theaters built, there were artist groups put together. There was a federal program called the Federal Music Project to document and basic types of music and to put together groups to perform it. There were actors, artists, pretty much any profession you can think of was hired by the WPA and paid an equivalent wage to what a wage earner would earn in their job in that area. At its height, they employed somewhere around 3.5 million people across the U.S. Here in Texas, it ended up being, I think, around 125,000 people. You got to put that in perspective. At the time, the Texas population was just over 6 million. Right now, there are more people than that in the metro Houston area. So it was a pretty large, it was roughly half of the people that Texas had on what they called their relief rolls, people that didn't have a job that needed state assistance. Here in Texas, the projects ran from anything you can think of, from state parks to gymnasiums to bridges, which we've just seen, One of the major projects they did was a lot of restoration at the Alamo. As I said, the list of projects runs completely across from building a major dam at Possum Kingdom Lake to thousands of miles of roads to a wildlife preserve in South Texas to a red outhouse on a small farm out in East Texas, which still exists, to what is undoubtedly the most infamous grassy knoll on the whole planet, Dealey Plaza in downtown Dallas. What we did was we gave the people, instead of handout, a chance to maintain some pride and to see some tangible results from their labor. Obviously, a lot of the tangible projects that were undertaken by the WPA are still in existence today. Some of the state parks, a lot of the buildings, they're still around. But don't limit the WPA to just what you can lick, touch, feel, and smell today. The intangible things are the things that we have pretty much lost. The musical groups that were put together to perform. Oh, and a little side note, in 1936 was also the Texas Centennial, 100 years of the state of Texas. So there were a lot of celebrations going on. In Texas, the WPA had somewhat limited direction in their musical program, to the point that there was no funding or organization for opera. So somehow or another, the WPA administrators in Fort Worth managed to put together 1,500 people to perform an operetta at Texas Christian University in celebration of the Texas Centennial. Way to go. That's pretty much all I'm going to say about the WPA. There is a lot of really good information out there. Some of it a little questionable. In particular, the thing that comes to mind is there is credit given for, I think, about 70 murals that were supposedly commissioned and painted by the WPA. That may not be true, because concurrent with the WPA, Texas was also running its own program above and beyond the federal program. And it looks like the artistry and the murals were actually done through the Texas program instead of the federal program. Something to think about as we go about trying to pass legislation to cover our current economic position. Remember, there's, like I said, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Y'all have a good day. Old Texan out.